Yeah, they're gonna be lying to each other this entire book, but do I care? Do I care? No, no, I don't care. Lie, 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 because the author did a really good job of keeping the tension, okay? Hey guys, Nina here, and welcome back to More Than Fiction. So, today we're gonna be discussing Reckless by Lauren Roberts. Powerless is already available on my podcast. And yeah, this was not the plan, by the way. I was not thinking about discussing this book, the second book. I don't even know why. I just know that when I stopped reading, when I got to the ending, I was like, what the fuck just happened? Okay? I immediately went on my Kindle to buy the third book, but surprise, surprise, it's not even released yet. It's coming out on April 8th, and I did not know that. For some reason, I actually thought this book, this trilogy, is already finished. So imagine my shock. I posted like even a video on social media because I was just so shocked. I was reading it in the middle of the night. I was sure I was hallucinating. Like I was positive that this probably isn't the case, that something's wrong. It said like pre-order now. I was just pre-order? Excuse me? Excuse me? What is going on? So here I am. I have to talk about it to someone, with someone. I just have to discuss it. Just release it, okay, into the universe. So that's why we're discussing Reckless today. Let's just say that there are things that I love about this book and there are things that I don't love about this book. And I'm gonna get through those first. So the things that I was kind of bugged by, annoyed by, because I just don't really want to dwell too long on that. So let's get through that first, and then we'll be talking about Kai and Paedyin, my lovelies, especially Kai. I just love him so much, and I loved him in this book too. No surprise there. So let's dive right in. Okay, first of all, the first half of this book dragged on for me, okay? It was so slow, so boring. I literally found myself scrolling on my phone a lot of the times. I was reading and then I just go on my phone and scroll. That's a huge red flag, okay? If I'm not invested, if my Instagram page is more interesting to me than the book, something is wrong. That's a big red flag. But, I was still curious what was gonna happen, how the story's gonna get resolved, in what direction it's gonna go. So I pushed through, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, basically, we start off where we left off in the first book, right? A few days after Powerless happened, everything that happened in that book, Kai is mourning someone, okay? There's a prologue in which he is all sad about this person. Her name starts with an A, that's all we know. He goes to his cook, Gail, the one he loves. She like makes something for him that she does supposedly every year. Kitt is supposed to go with him to honor this person who died, but of course Kitt is completely lost in his own mind, in his study. And yeah, that was like the first thing that kind of bugged me immediately, because we never heard about this A person in the first book. There was no foreshadowing going on, We were in Kai's mind, and yet not once did he mention, oh, the anniversary of the death of this and this person is coming up. It's just so weird. And now all of a sudden, a few days later, and he's like mourning, and this is something that he does every year. So this was immediately, like, from a writing point of view, just something that was, I was asking myself, am I supposed to care about this, But don't worry, I'm not going to be too negative, because later on in the book, when we find out who Ava is, right, that she was his little sister who was sickly, she was born sickly, and that's why she also died prematurely at about age 4. He really loved her, he played with her a lot, just beautiful, such a beautiful story, and I cried. Okay, so it did touch me eventually. But at first, when I saw it, that was immediately the first thing that we get in the book. You know what I mean? It's supposed to kind of pull you in, attract you, and this didn't do it for me. So that's why I'm mentioning it. But yeah, eventually it worked. Just hearing Kai speak about his little sister, and she was like a child, a baby girl, just makes me so sad, and makes me hate his dad even more. Like, what the fuck is wrong with that dude? I mean, thank God he's not around anymore, but like, seriously, what was wrong with him? What a douche. She wasn't even buried with his family. That's like how like undeserving she was because she was a weakling. He kept it a secret, no one was supposed to know. Just so sad. And the fact that he opened up to Paedyin about it, he explained it to her what it means when he kissed her thumb. That's something that he did with Ava. Just all about that moment I loved. I love their bonding, you know. Kai really opens up to Paedyin. He really tells her stuff, and vice versa too. And yeah, but I'll get to that later. Anyways, Kai is basically on the hunt for Paedyin now, okay? She is on her way to Dor, which is a city in another kingdom. You have to cross this desert to get there. This is the only choice that Paedyin has. She has to get out of here. And Kai eventually follows her. He goes after her. This is by Kitt's orders. He wants her back alive, though. And that entire part, the chase, was boring because like the best part about Powerless for me was Kai's and Paedyn's relationship. That's what I was into. Okay, anytime they were on page together, when they were bantering, you know, just joking, being playful with each other, I was eating that shit up. But whenever anything else was going on, literally anything else, I was bored. So that's why, all in all, if you've listened to my previous episode, you know that the book as a whole isn't the best. Because if it were, I would be into all of it, not just the parts that has, you know, the romantic aspect involved. And it was the same here. Well, here it was even worse. That one was more interesting. This one, when they were not together, was just not for me, okay? And then eventually, you know, he did find her. And even when he did find her, he lost her again. And that happened way too many times. Way too many times, okay? So that really dragged on for me. And also, a lot of the thought process at the beginning with Paedyin kind of didn't make sense. You know, like for example, the first time they run into each other while he's hunting her is actually at her old house where she lived with her dad. So Kai arrives, she hides, and he doesn't know she's there, but she's listening in on him. And he's having like this monologue. He's talking to himself out loud, so she hears everything. And he's basically confessing that he's not ready to catch up with her, that he's not ready to confront her, that he doesn't want to take her with him, that he doesn't want to hurt her. He doesn't say it in so many words, but that's what he's insinuating. He says that he's grateful that she's not there because he's not ready for her actually. And she hears that. And then later on in her thought process, when she's like dying in the desert without water, she's thinking, he'll be so disappointed to learn he was robbed of his revenge, that it was the desert where death finally caught up to me. Just like, I just noted this, highlighted it, and noted, stupid. I mean, you already know. He let you go with an advantage. He told you he loves you. You know that basically in his mind you stabbed him. This thought process doesn't make sense. I understand her, I guess now, disliking him a little bit more or even hating him because she knows that he's the one who kind of killed her dad. So I guess I understand that initial reaction that she'd have about that. But, thinking that he would actually hurt her, I don't know. I was just rolling my eyes at this. I would understand kind of if she was confronting him and if she would say this to him because she'd be like annoyed, and she'd want to hurt him with words. I'd get that. But this was like her on her own thinking it in her mind while she knows that he still loves her. If it was at least repeated once, if it was stated once. No, she keeps repeating this in her head. But this was also a fear of mine. When I finished Powerless, going into this book, I actually stated it in my previous episode, how afraid I am that she's gonna keep repeating how he killed her dad, and that's what she did at the beginning here. And it was just too many times. We've already heard this. We know you have conflicting feelings about him. We know you're hurt. It doesn't have to be stated so many times because it just gets annoying. It just gets tiring and she pisses me off. And as a character, as a consequence, I don't like her. That's what this kind of writing does to me. It causes me to feel that way, and I don't want to feel that way. I want to like Paedyin. And like I stated previously, the mouse and cat situation was getting annoying because he finally caught her when she was fighting in the underground ring. She escaped. He caught up with her. She challenged him because she knew that this guy is kind of the only way out. She made a deal with him. They were fighting. He caught her. Then she escaped again and again, and At one point I was just like, okay, this is getting repetitive. The writer should have gotten to the part where they get chained together, I guess, because he chained them together faster. That should have happened faster. Like, this whole chase was way too long for me. I was getting bored out of my mind. Let me know how you felt about it, if you were into it, if you were not into it, if you were like me, because I just couldn't. Then the resistance part of this entire book, unnecessary. Basically, he eventually, when he finally did catch her, they went on their merry way back to their kingdom, right? And on their way back, while they were sleeping in the desert, the resistance, the what remained of them, right, caught up to them. They basically let Paedyin know that the resistance is basically done. They suffered too much loss, too much damage at that fight, which, okay, too bad for that. She was super happy to see Lenny, right? The guard that worked with her, and the rest of them, the ones that she was kind of meeting in her dad's house basement. She was super happy about it. I didn't feel any kind of a connection there. I get that she's happy for them to be alive. She didn't want them to die. They were still collaborators and everything, but the way it was described was like such an emotional way. Like, I'm supposed to really feel something. Like, this is a found family situation, but it's not, I didn't feel anything about them. Of course, they caught Kai. Like, I don't know, Kai, I feel like he could have defeated all of these people in battle. There was 4 of them, I think, or something like that. I feel like Kai would have won, honestly, and there were some among them that had powers too, I think, but they weren't really combative powers. Okay, so scratch that. But okay, for some reason he couldn't. And they were on their merry way back to the city they came from. And then they come to this place where Lenny's mom is actually harboring refugees and she's helping them. And what happens with this storyline? Literally nothing. She basically explains how she's helping these people out. There are mixes there, which is another thing that we have not heard of in the previous book. It was not foreshadowed even once that the offspring of an ordinary and an elite is a mix. So someone who has some kind of an ability, but it's not that strong. I feel like this is something that the writer literally just came up with while she was writing the second book, and she was just like, let me throw that in. If someone tells me that this was her plan all along, the mixes were her plan, that's such a lie. If that was the case, it would have already been mentioned in the first book. I get it if no one knew about this, but when you read it from Kai's and Paedyin's points of views, they kind of knew that mixes existed. Or at least Kai, I know that 100% knew, but he didn't know how to detect them. But he knew they were out there, right? And yet, in the first book, in his thought process, he never mentions this, like not once. So, that was just out of the blue, wasn't connecting with that story at all, didn't touch me. The way his mom was, like Lenny's mom was explaining it, yes, I help them here. They don't belong with the elites, but they don't belong with the ordinaries either. So they don't belong anywhere. It sounds sad, but it didn't like make me feel anything because I was just too angry about it to care. And yeah, soon after that, the guy that hired Paedyin to fight in the rings, he basically kidnaps Kai and Paedyin because he finds out that Paedyin is the one that has a bounty on her head and the reward for catching her is huge. So he locks them up. They escape eventually. They almost die because they almost drown in the sewers. And I feel like that was a good scene. I knew that they were not obviously gonna die, but it was them finally admitting to each other's stuff. And they were like saying that they're pretending, that in that moment, because they were dying, they wanted to get it off their chests. And even before they were trapped in the sewers and the water, when they were just in the cell, I loved it when Paedyin was like vulnerable with him and she said, can we pretend that it's okay not to hate each other in these moments? And he says, yes, pretend. And she asks him, do you regret any of it? And he's like, regret what? Us, regret what happened between us, even the more recent things. And he's just like, sleep, little psychic, regret in the morning. I'm just regret in the morning. The romance in this book, I really like it. I feel like I've repeated this a dozen times already, but it does save this series for me. Because if the romance wasn't as good to me as it is, I wouldn't I would hate this book series. Like, I would literally hate it, and I would be so annoyed that it's so, so overhyped. But, since I love the romance so much, I can kind of understand people being so obsessed with it, that they're hyping it up so much. Because when I read about Kai and Paedyin, I'm also just like, I get all giddy and excited, and I'm just super happy when they're bantering. The first time they were in a room and there was just one bed trope, right? They were bantering again after a while. And she was like, "You're gonna be sleeping on the floor, I'm gonna be sleeping on the bed." And she just took the entire bed, even though there was enough room for both of them. I just literally highlighted that and I noted it. I miss this so much. They're bantering, they're bickering. And yeah, but before we go to the drowning scene, oh my gosh, how could I have forgotten their first kiss? Their first kiss happened on that roof when she was escaping from the ring and he caught up with her. I did not see that coming. I did not see it coming. I was not thinking it was going to happen that way, but I liked it. I liked it because it was angry, it was passionate, it was just amazing, but they were like angry kissing. They were mad at each other and they just wanted to express everything they're feeling, their rage, through that kiss. And I don't know about you guys, but it did it for me. And I'm glad that we got it so soon after they ran into each other. Because to me, it literally just like said, God, I've been on the run for you. It's been a while since I've seen you. And now that you're in front of me, I literally can't resist you. You know what I mean? And you were just like in that moment, yeah, they're gonna be lying to each other this entire book. But do I care? Do I care? No, I don't care. Lie, because the author did a really good job of keeping the tension, okay? Sometimes I am annoyed when characters are stubborn and they're just like hating each other, but they don't really hate each other. Sometimes it doesn't work. But in this case, I don't know, it kind of did for me. It did it for me. I don't know what's different. Maybe I just like the characters so much that that's why I'm not particularly annoyed by it. I'm not sure what it is. Let me know what your thoughts are. But with them, I was just into it. Maybe it's because it makes sense that they were lying to each other. I mean, his plan was still to bring her back because he felt like he owed Kitt that much. Because Kitt is still his brother. He loves him. He knows that he's in trouble now that he's king. He's lost. He wants to prove to him that he's still there for him. And in Kai's mind, Paedyin still, betrayed him. In his head, the plan was to betray him all along. He doesn't know for sure, to a certain point. And then at one point, it's easier to pretend. Literally, it's easier to pretend because if they don't, everything just falls apart. Their entire belief system, everything. And Kai, he still has that fear of the ordinaries. This was kind of surprising to me. If I dive deep into it, it's frustrating because in the previous book, when the battle was happening, right, with the ordinaries, he realized they were ordinary and he thought to himself, but if they were living amongst us this entire time, why did my powers not dampen? Why did they not affect me? If the disease is true, why am I still fine? Why is everyone still fine? So I thought that he was gonna catch up with it faster, figure it out sooner in this book too, that he was gonna think about it, well, what if this disease actually is a lie, But he never thought about it, like not even once. Just at the end, when Paedyin was trying to explain it to him, that's when he kinda... But I guess this is another part, it's easier to believe the lie. He lived that lie his entire life. That's the reason why he killed people too. I mean, yeah, sure, it was following his dad's orders, but still, he thought that this was a thing, that these ordinaries were dangerous to them. Still wrong. I mean, so what if your powers go away? I mean, is that really that bad in comparison to killing people just because of what they are, of who they are? But that's a debate for another day. That's why this series, this book doesn't work, because if you start to think about it more and more, like logically, everything falls apart. It doesn't have a base to stand on. That's why we shouldn't. Let's treat it as a romance book, because I don't want to diss it too much, because like I said, it still made me feel good. I was still happy about it. Let's move on to Kai and Paedyin again. So, like I was saying, they were drowning. And that's the first time that they actually admit stuff to each other, because obviously they're on the brink of death. They have to say it. It's the last time that they can, and they don't want to die with that regret. Paedyin, no, I say sternly, don't do that. Don't go saying my name because you think it might be the last time you ever will. And he's like, your name seems like a good word to die with on my lips. I don't regret it. I don't regret you or what was between us, and I don't regret kissing you on that roof. But I know I'll regret what I have to do to you for the rest of my life. So beautiful. It's the perfect moment to confess things because it makes sense again. Of course, they're gonna finally speak about it when they think there's no tomorrow. And he asks her if she regrets it, and she's like, I regret not doing it right, and I regret not being what I'm supposed to be. Oh, which is so sad, you know? And she's like, I'm sorry you have to be anything at all. And then this sequence. Death emboldens, the end initiates. His hands tug my face closer until I can feel his breath on my lips. Water drips from his hair to splatter onto my suddenly heated skin. His pulse pounds beneath my fingers wrapped around his wrists. My heart aches to be reunited with the peace he's stolen from me. My nose brushes his. Pretend, I whisper against his lips. I am recklessness incarnate until the very end. My mouth meets his. He tastes like longing, like regret and relief, like nothing matters but this moment. It's fervent, like a sinner's final prayer. And maybe that is what this kiss is. Repentance. This book should be named Repentance. I'm gonna die on that hill. Oh, like guys, I'm getting goosebumps. You can't see it, but I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's crazy. This relationship, it just does something to me, okay? And then, from his point of view, sorry, I have to read it. Bear with me. She tastes like a piece of the heaven I won't be going to. Kissing her is relief. It's a delicate sort of demand. She pulls away, panting words between each kiss. I hate you. He's like, I know. I murmur into her mouth. Her palms push at my chest, pulling her lips away from mine to whisper again, I hate you. I run my hand slowly up her side. Prove it to me, Gray. I murmur against her ear. Hate me enough to use me. You guys, like, am I the only one that is this affected by this relationship? By Kai and Paedyin? Am I the only one? Please let me know I'm not, because these two do stuff to me, okay? Oh my gosh, this moment in the water, better than the one on the roof. You know, the one on the roof was anger and just rage. This is them being real and honest, even though they're saying pretend. They know they're not, okay? Deep down they know because they're dying. Perfection, like literally perfection, if you ask me. This writer does romance really good, if you ask me, but the other stuff not so much. But the romance, like these two are my favorite. For example, I know everyone's obsessed with Fourth Wing right now, but I don't know, guys. Do Zayden and Violet do to you what these two do to me? Do Zayden and Violet really feel to you as strong as these two do? Because I feel like we get a lot of more connection with these two. With Zayden and Violet, it's a lot of sexuality going on, you know, a lot of attraction and sex and all of that. They're not connecting as deeply as Kai and Paedyin are. I feel like Kai and Paedyin connect on an emotional level, you know, and also they don't have, like, they still haven't had sex, for example. And I feel like that's important, that you connect firsthand in that kind of a way and then you go on and do that. I'm not saying Zayden and Violet didn't, but yeah, they didn't. I'm not gonna be talking about Fourth Wing right now. You have like another episode for that to listen to on my podcast. But yeah, I'm just trying to compare it because these are both romantasy books that are super popular right now. And I feel from the romance side of it, this is so much better. And anyways, they don't die. What a shocker, I know. He saves her, okay? She's like drowning and he kind of manages to open a hatch or something and he pushes her through, and when he does that his air runs out and he drowns, but she goes after him, even though there was a small part where she was like hesitating, and I was like, girl, are you for real right now? Are you seriously hesitating? You know, in her mind she was like, my problems would be solved if I don't. But still, I was actually shocked that she was even like considering that for a second. Honestly, I was. But yeah, I guess, you know, the hate wasn't entirely fake. After they're like on the surface, saved from the water, we watch each other, his grey eyes unwavering. It feels different, this look. The look of two people who now share another secret. Nothing has changed between us, and yet nothing will ever be the same again. The things death made us say, the kiss we shared thinking it was our last, can never be undone. Yeah? That's what I said previously, basically. This kiss was different. This moment changed them. It was super important because it was super real. And they both know that. So, yeah. And now I want to know what you guys think about what happened next. So, after they get out of the sewers, Kai chains her to him with a literal chain, okay? I thought that was. I didn't hate it actually. I liked it because it was a good way for them to stick together, for her to literally be unable to run away. And I was tired of her running away. That was happening way too much at the beginning of the book. And I feel like the author had to do it for it to make sense now, why she's somehow not managing to escape now. Because she was so good at it before, like she literally slipped from his fingers every single time. Why can't she just do it again? So if you're chained to the guy, of course you can't. So it made sense. And I just like the fact that they were constantly together, that they could not separate. It just created even more tension. It was even more fun. The bickering got even more intense. But the way it happened sucked because they just almost died. They were kissing. So she kind of was still in those feels. She was still feeling emotional about it. And in her head, it meant something. And it meant to him too. But he was still being deranged. He was still thinking that he has to bring her back to Kitt. So he basically used his sexiness to chain her to him, which sucked but effective. So he's like, a good moment. Are we going to talk about it? I have no idea what you're referring to. A cocky laugh. Is that so? I could remind you if you like. It was a mistake. This one and the one before. And he's like, the only mistake was not making it sooner. And then she starts stuttering, and it's super funny. And he's like, no. His fingers trail up my neck to trace my jaw. The mistake was tasting you now that you likely won't let me do it again. I swallow, shudder, suck in a breath. Plagues, help me. And when she says this, I swallow, shudder, suck in a breath, this is like the author was describing us, I feel like, the audience, the readers, because that's what I was doing. Just hyperventilating and screaming to whoever hears, plagues, help me. Literally. After that, he chains her. But this entire sequence was it was brilliant. What can I say? Like, even rereading it right now, I'm getting all excited about it. I mean, I feel like you can see and you can hear it. So, Kai and Paedyin, they're awesome. And, like I was explaining before, how she annoyed me a lot of times with her repetitions and everything. But this I understood, after he chained her to him, she felt used. And this is what she said. I feel sick. I feel used. I feel at fault for this because I did this to myself. Not only did I save the enforcer, but I also let myself want him. But it was nothing more than distraction to the prince, a means to an end. And I was stupid enough to think it could have meant anything more. The pathetic are punished, and now I'm chained to my captor. So, that sucked for her because, yeah, she allowed herself to think it was more. And this kind of reminds me of like a toxic relationship of a fuckboy or something, when you want to believe it's good, and you allow yourself to be manipulated because you hope for the best, right? And this is like her in this instance, but not really because Kai actually isn't like that. He literally does care for her. Though in that moment, it was all wrong. And in that moment, he was the one to annoy me for a change, And not just in that moment, like a lot of the times. He just, the way he lied, the way this man lies to himself, oh my gosh, like he's better at it than Paedyin. For so long, like literally they were in front of the castle, and that's when he finally decided and understood that he's way into her, that he can't allow Kitt to have her. I'm just like, well, no shit, Kitt might actually kill her, from Kai's point of view, he doesn't know what Kitt's gonna do. And yet he's still bringing her to him. It just blows my mind, In that way, Kai annoyed me in this book. But then again, I was glad that it was happening because I feel like Paedyin and Kai, they needed this. they needed this time together. They needed, like, this forced proximity was really necessary for them to finally accept their feelings, you know? And of course, Paedyin also, since they were together all the time, she couldn't help herself. She had to tell him about what he did to her dad. He was all shocked about it, but he told her, he explained it to her. So what he said is basically that his dad sent him on this mission to do it the first time. That was the first time he killed someone, and he wasn't planning on doing it. He was like, her dad was sleeping and he was there and he opened his eyes and he was just scared. He was shocked. So he reacted instinctively and he killed him. And he never felt good about it. It was like, he was a boy, you know, he was forced to do that. And it's kind of awful for Paedyin too, because she believes him. She knows he's telling the truth, but it still sucks, right? But yeah, eventually after that, after he explains himself, her repetitions about him killing her dad and stuff were kind of, I feel like, getting to a point where they were not that big of a deal anymore. She wasn't repeating it too much. She understood, and I'm glad that she did. That she wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't believe him, he's a liar. No, she actually said it to herself. The most awful part about it is that I know he's telling the truth. I know this is what happened. And that's why it's even more difficult, because she wants to hate him. She thinks like she should hate him, but she can't, because he was just a kid and he was abused and he was used by his dad to do this, something that he did not want to do and that he would not do if it wasn't for his dad, right? So that dynamic made sense. There was also a one bed trope in this book that I loved. I love a one bed trope if it's done well. The first time around, it wasn't done well. And then the second time around, he did lie on the bed and it was cold. So naturally, he had to hug her to share body warmth, right? And he was actually being like a little bit of a dick here, because he says, all this means is that we're useful to one another. And she's like, fine, pretend. I just love these moments. Whenever they said pretend, I loved it. You could argue another thing that was overly used. It was repeated so many times. But this, I didn't mind. I guess it just really depends on personal preference, you know? So that's why I completely understand it if a lot of you also think that her thought process about her dad, her hating him, if that was not too much to you, I completely get it, because some might argue that the use of that word was too much, and it wasn't for me, because it just, again, made sense, you know? Just like a game they were playing, essentially, and lying to themselves and to each other. And that was fun. So I've spoken about Kai and Paedyin a lot, and I'm still not done. But before I finish it off, because I want to finish this episode with them, I want to discuss Kitt, okay? We got Kitt's point of view in this book too. We already got it like in one chapter at the end, in the first one. And I'm glad we got more of him, because otherwise he would just be absent. We wouldn't know what's going on with him. And I am happy with the direction the author took when it comes to Kitt, because in the first book, in the first episode, you know that I was explaining how afraid I am that Kitt's just gonna be stubborn and that he's gonna have like this black and white thought process, that he's not gonna see clearly. And as much as it started off like that, which makes sense because he's grieving, he's hurt, he's betrayed, he wants to blame someone, and it makes sense to blame Paedyin and to kind of guard himself and protect his emotions by pretending like he's cold and like he's just a super mean king now, you know? He's just trying to imitate his dad. And that's something that really annoyed me in the first book. I was so mad with Kitt because I felt like he has no spine. He has no opinion of his own. He just follows his dad blindly. And that is not a good thing, okay? I don't like characters like that. I don't like people like that. But this book, I feel like, made him more complex, because now that we're in his head, we know that he knows this. So we know that he's aware of how stupid he is in that sense. And he's admitting that to himself. And he's conflicted about it because he doesn't know who he is without his dad. And he admits as much, and I'm gonna read it now. They think I'm mad with grief over a man who felt little more than disappointment and obligation for me. How absurd. How absurd to grieve a man who loved power more than his sons. How absurd to grieve a man who offered me no praise. How absurd to grieve a man who could never be pleased. How unfair to grieve such a man. So I won't any longer. I'm done with it, truly. I miss who I was before finding him with a dagger buried in his neck. I miss the brother I was to Kai and Jax. I miss sweaty days in the training ring. I miss running away from balls to drink until sunrise. I miss running from responsibility in general. I was so happy for this moment because I was just like, finally, we got Kitt back. He's finally understanding. He's past that initial trauma that he felt. Now he's finally just there. He's like, I am done grieving a man who was literally a son of a bitch. I'm still mad the way he treated Kai in the previous book. Like, go listen to my previous episode, but I have to state it here. When the king was being awful to Kai, demanding that he wins the trials, and Kai, of course, he defended himself. He was like, fuck you, dad. And Kitt went after him, and he was mad at Kai. He was like, what's wrong with you? The king is just doing what's best. He was just like being delusional. And I'm just like, why don't you stand up for your brother? Stand up for him. I mean, I feel like deep down, Kitt always knew that his dad was, what he was doing is wrong. But he just craved his love and attention so much. And this is confirmed also in this book. Still hard for me to understand, because why would you want that kind of a man to respect you when you obviously see how he treats everyone around you? Especially your brother. And even you. Like in this book, from Kai's point of view, the way he explained the relationship between Kitt and the king is like the king treated Kitt better. Instead of torturing him physically, he would just like teach him strategy and paperwork and stuff like that, the boring parts. And in Kai's mind, of course, that's amazing. He didn't torture him, but he tortured him in a different way. Like we can see that Kitt always felt like he wasn't enough because he actually preferred Kai, which is so interesting because Kai thought it was the other way around. But Kai, he was the weapon that the king wanted. He was a warrior in the sense that Kitt wasn't. But then again, you think Kitt could have been that though. You just didn't let him. So then again, it also doesn't make sense for the king as a character, because if you want your son, the future ruler, to be like that, just, let him help. Let him also fight the battles. You can also send him on enforcer missions with Kai. You know what I mean? If he truly wanted that kind of a future king, ruler out of Kitt, he could have easily done that. He could also, train him in that sense. He could have also tortured Kitt at the end of the day and made him strong. But besides doing that, he could also teach him the other stuff that are important for, a future king. So he could do both for both of them. So that's also interesting. And if you think about it, the fact that he never taught Kai of what it's like to be a ruler, to be a king, is also interesting because, yeah, Kai is not the future king, but he might be. You never know what might happen to Kitt, and Kai has to step in and replace him. Like, you never know. He's the spare at the end of the day, and the spare should know stuff like this too. I feel like the king as a character isn't developed that well. Again, when you start overthinking it, his rationale and why he treated one son like that and the other one like that, it just gets all foggy and confusing. And the part where I was discussing like Kitt not having an opinion of his own, that's what annoyed me. And it still kind of does, but at the same time, he's aware of it. And this is where he said it. He is gone, and I don't even know how to breathe if he does not command me to do so. Command me to eat, to live. He admits this to his cousin when she enters his study, and I'm so happy. Self-awareness is the first step of getting better and of changing. So I'm glad we got this from him. See, points of views are so important. You might really hate a character, you might dislike him, feel like he's the worst, but then you get in his head and you just start to see things clearly. It's the same in life. We judge people where we can be mean or whatever, we can't understand them because we don't live their life. We're not them. But if we were, maybe we'd feel a little bit more empathetic and more understanding, and our life would be much more positive. You know what I mean? And I feel like books with these points of views, they teach us that, because I think I'm an empathetic person. I think I'm understanding. And yet I was so mean about Kitt in the previous episode, And I stand by the things I said. But now that I was in his head, I'm like, okay, I get it. And I feel like the author did a good job of this, of writing him as this kind of a complex character. He's definitely not one-dimensional, and I love those kinds of characters. So Kitt, He's pretty good. He's pretty great. And besides understanding Kitt a little bit better, there's also a mystery now. Because what does Kitt do at the end? He proposes to Paedyin. Another thing that I did not like about Kitt was the fact that he went after her, even though he knew Kai liked her. Okay, so he still went after her and he still ended up falling for her or whatever it is. We're not really sure how he feels about her right now. He's conflicted, I guess. He also writes notes about her. He still cares for her. He feels betrayed. But I'm just like, why did you even allow yourself to get into that position if you knew all along that Kai, your brother, likes her? But now I feel like there's more to that. There's like an explanation. So Kitt says at one point, father and his subtle encouragement to spend time with her. So father encouraged him to spend time with Paedyin, even though he confronted Paedyin and he told her to stay away from his sons. So he was playing a game here. And since he was subtly encouraging Kitt, and Kitt now works with Vernon, so Vernon was the leader of the rebellion, the one that can read minds, right? That makes me believe that Vernon was working with the king all along, that this was his plan all along, that he told the king about the resistance trying to find a way into the castle. He planted that seed with Paedyin so that she infiltrates the castle, and he told the king how she's going to do it. So that's why the king encouraged Kitt to spend time with her, because he knew his son is soft and that Paedyin is probably gonna find a way to get those keys and to bring the resistance into the castle. And in that way, he was gonna destroy the resistance at once. It was like a slaughter at the end of the day. I mean, they did lose, right? Like they were set up, like it was a trap. So I feel like this was their plan all along. But there are other aspects, like in their conversations between Kitt and Vernon, that confuse me a little bit, and that make me unsure of this theory. So, as of now, we know that Vernon is the one who gave Kitt the idea of proposing to Paedyin. So, we learned this here, which is why I hope you will go through with my latest suggestion. I stiffen. His latest suggestion was absurd at best, the proposal. An absurdity that I'm foolish enough to consider. But before I can voice this or something else equally unwise, he pulled a small box from his pocket and set it on the worn wood between us. Okay, so he gives him the ring with which he's gonna propose Paedyin. And this makes me question everything, right? Because if Vernon was working with the king to destroy the resistance, why would he be helping Paedyin now? Because this is him helping her. Like, this is how he keeps her alive. If he wanted Paedyin and the resistance squashed, he would probably just tell him to kill her off, right? I mean, he might have some extra plans, or there might be stuff about Paedyin we don't know, since we don't really know who her parents are. Maybe there's some important people. Maybe Paedyin secretly actually has powers, and maybe the ring that she keeps touching on her finger that was her dad's, maybe that ring actually dampens her abilities. Maybe she actually has abilities. But then you start questioning, why would the king then want to kill her? You know, because the king, he was prepared to kill her in that tunnel, but he was stopped. She killed him. But that makes you wonder, maybe Vernon didn't share everything with the king? Maybe Vernon is like even smarter. He might be the one that's manipulating everyone. At the end of the day, he is a mind reader. That's the best power to have, right? I mean, he knows everything. He knows how to manipulate. He knows what to say to make people do what he wants them to do. So maybe this is just Vernon's master plan, and it has nothing to do with the king or anyone else. So after this, when he gives him the ring, he says, "Do you even understand what you're asking me to do?" His sigh is heavy, as though he too wears the weight of the kingdom on his shoulders, and in a way he does. You're the king. The life you live is no longer yours alone. This is a sacrifice that must be made for the good of the kingdom. He pauses, letting his words hang in the air between us. This is how you help the people you still haven't confronted. So this sentence, when he says, this is how you help the people you still haven't confronted, I think he's not talking about the people as a whole. I think he's talking about the poor people that live in the slums. You know, the people that he's never actually like even been there to visit. He did it once with Paedyin, but you know what I mean. He's never actually officially went to see them. He's never confronted them. And that's why I think that Paedyin might be someone of importance in another kingdom. You know, maybe she's like a long lost child of certain rulers. And the thing is that this kingdom is so poor because it's so detached. They're so isolated. They have no connections to others. And that's why certain people live in poverty. There's no money, there's nothing to even give to them, right? But if he marries the daughter of some royals from another land, he might connect the two kingdoms and he might get the money and the resources that he needs to keep everyone in his kingdom happy. Because, you know, regardless of what king thinks about the ordinaries, he still doesn't know that the ordinaries aren't a danger. I feel like he's very empathetic and he feels for the people who don't have anywhere to live in the slums and the kids who starve. And when Paedyin showed him that environment, he was really touched by it and he felt for them. So maybe this is his plan. Maybe this is, you know, this is what he means when Vernon says, this is the only way to help your people. But then again, you also start questioning everything because this is so complicated. Because Kitt supposedly doesn't know about the ordinaries. Supposedly, he doesn't know that there's no actual disease. He still thinks that they're diseased. So, why would he want to marry someone who is diseased and can dampen his abilities? Isn't he afraid that he's gonna lose them altogether? So, in that way, the entire plan, the entire logic falls apart. Unless he actually knows already. Unless Vernon told him that it's all been a lie because they want to control everyone and keep the power. But it's really hard for me to believe that Kitt would accept that because he's not a bad person. Like, I feel like we've established this. Kitt is not a bad person. He feels empathy, he feels remorse. I don't think he'd agree with this. I don't know. I feel like we're missing something here. Maybe Vernon has mind control abilities too. Maybe he's controlling everyone. I don't know. Vernon might be just a whole nother level of evil, and we're gonna find that out in the third book. And maybe even, like I said before, this is how you help the people you still haven't confronted. Maybe he also means the ordinaries by this. Maybe this is, yeah, actually the answer. Maybe Kitt knows about the ordinaries and he wants to confront them too, and he wants them to live in peace in this kingdom. And the way to achieve that is by marrying Paedyin, an ordinary, who's very well known. And that way he connects both sides. But again, you start questioning, why would Vernon then want that if he was helping the king all along? Unless he wasn't. But if he wasn't helping the king all along, how did this happen? You know, why is Kitt just agreeing with him? Why is he letting him counsel him? Why is he believing him? What kind of a power does Vernon have over him? There's also a chance that maybe Kitt was questioning Vernon when Kai left, and that's how they connected, because Vernon told him everything, and Kitt saw it, that he's honest, that he's real, and now he just trusts him and he believes him. There's so much we don't know. But you know, if Kitt is now fine with the ordinaries, if there's like no evil there, then I don't know what the plot for the third book is gonna be. Is it just gonna revolve around Paedyin deciding if she wants to marry Kitt and help her people? So sacrifice herself for the greater good, you could say? Or if she wants to be selfish and say no to Kitt and marry Kai instead and be with him. Maybe that's gonna be the plot. Maybe it's gonna be completely romance focused, which I wouldn't mind, because this book, this series is very strong when it comes to romance, and the other stuff isn't, you know, that strong, the plot and all of that. And then when it comes to Vernon, another thing that kind of proves to me that he liked the king. So he says, what was it your father would always say to the people? Something about what it is that makes a great king. Managing a sad smile, I supply. Ah, yes, the 3 B's. Column, oh, it's not Vernon, by the way, it's Column. I'm sorry, guys, it's Column. Column nods, humming at the memory. That's what it was. I remember how he used to recite them when informing the kingdom of a new law or decision he had made. Brave, benevolent, and brutal. I don't know how this plan for him to marry Paedyin is supposed to be brutal. Maybe because, maybe in the sense that he doesn't want to hurt Kai. And he also obviously doesn't want to marry Paedyin. I mean, she's still the woman who killed his dad. Kind of hard to look her in the eye after she did that, right? Regardless of what his father was like. So maybe in that way it's brutal. And also it's forcing her to do it too. Like, it just forces everyone to do shit they don't want to do. So it's just brutal in that way. But yeah, the way they're talking about the king here feels like, they're reminiscing. They're being like nostalgic. Oh, the good old days when the good old king was saying how important it is to be brutal, benevolent, and brave. All of this is very confusing. And yeah, Colum, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but the thing is that even the first time he was mentioned, when he entered the king's study, I was just like, who the fuck is this? I forgot who Colum is. I had to Google it. Because yeah, the resistance, I mean, it was so irrelevant in the first book, as it is now too. So yeah, I think that's it when it comes to Kitt. I might get to him back later. But now let's get back to Paedyin and Kai. So many amazing moments between them. Sadly, I won't be able to talk about all of them. There's too many. But yeah, part of their journey, besides bickering and flirting and being all sexy, is also that eventually Paedyin tries to convince Kai to see how wrong it is what they're doing to the ordinaries, right? And he says it at one point. He says they are the beginning of the end of elites. And she tells him, and what is so wrong with that if it means everyone gets to live? She whispers, pleading for me to understand. And I'm just like, exactly. I mean, really? You are really seriously willing to sacrifice innocent people, to kill them, just so that you can keep your fancy powers? Kai was surprising me here. Like, this mindset of his was really, really scary. Right? Crazy. And, the way he was trying to explain it away, that, even if the ordinaries aren't diseased, even if they don't physically cause us harm in that way, procreating with the ordinaries is a problem, because then our elite powers are not as strong anymore, and that means the end of the elites too. And I'm like, are you listening to yourself? It's just so crazy because, and yeah, I know that at this point he's still kind of lying to himself. He's still saying that he's not that into her, that it's all pretend or whatever. But a part of him knows. So what? You're really willing to let her go just because she's an ordinary, and because if you have sex with her and she gets pregnant, she'll have what? A baby that isn't as strong? Like, he doesn't, what? Would you love that child less because he doesn't have abilities, or she? Kai's mindset in this case was very disturbing. I tried not to dwell on it too much, but now that I'm talking about it here, that was bad. That's not okay. And eventually they find the notebook. I mean, they don't find it. She found it in her house, the notebook her dad left her. She just thinks it's a diary. And it is essentially a diary, but it's also proof, because in that diary, it's basically stated that the king confined every healer to his castle, and he basically bribed them to lie about the elites. Okay? And Kai reads this and he's just in shock. She told him this before, but of course it's different to actually see, let's say, proof, right? It's hard to, I guess that's how you explain Kai's thought process. Yeah, he's trying to rationalize it. He's trying to make it make sense, because otherwise everyone he killed died for nothing. And he says it here. No, that can't be right. I can't let that be right, because I've justified everything. Everything I've done as the enforcer. It was all to protect the elites and Ilya from this disease. But if ordinaries aren't weakening our powers, that would mean that he's been killing ordinaries to prevent them from reproducing with elites. He's been killing healthy, innocent people. He finally looks over at me, gray eyes icy. I've been killing healthy, innocent people. So yeah, now, in this point when he explains it like that, you kind of finally get it. He's been justifying it to himself. He wanted to believe the lie. He lied to himself about it because it was easier that way. And there were like so many moments between them. That's why I'm so glad for the chain and for the forced proximity, because there were so many fragile moments between them when they told each other stuff. Like when he was talking about Ava, he tells her, but she especially loved it when I kissed her thumbs, told me it gave her extra strength. So that's what I did. I kissed her thumbs every day until Kitt helped me bury her. And he tells her how, she reminds him of Ava. Your spirit is familiar. You remind me of what could have been. In another life, I think Ava would have grown up to be like you. And she's like, what? You wanted her to be a criminal? No, I wanted her to be formidable, recklessly bold, powerful despite ability. I stare at him, taking in each word. I am none of those things, I whisper. You are much more than those things. Just this man. This man, he keeps saying how he hates her, how he's pretending, and then he says shit like that. No way can you be able to say something like that from the heart if you're pretending, douchebag. I still love it, but oh my gosh, so good, so good. And yeah, eventually, when they were on their way to the castle, they also found like a lake of some kind. I just know there was water and they went to swim in it. And that was another moment when they kissed. And this was like, oh my gosh, so honest and so real and so good. And again, the pretending, but fine. Just pretend, he murmurs. We deserve to pretend. And oh my gosh, when he said he murmurs, when it said he murmurs, whenever a main male character murmurs something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am dying. Just him murmuring shit. Just murmur more often. Like, I love it. There's that word again, the one that justifies the feeling I'm fighting. He's lifting my leg, guiding it until it's wrapped around his hip. Another raindrop finds my nose when my gaze lifts to meet his. Our faces close. My heart pounds in my chest, raging a war with my screaming mind. I shouldn't do this. He's a slippery slope that I am on the verge of tumbling down. A temptation I know better than to taste. Again. But this is pretend. This is a secret for the souls. I don't know. There's so much more of these moments that I just want to read about. Just too good, too good. And I love how cocky he is. There were so many moments when he was just like, just are you gonna kiss me or you just keep admiring what you see? And I'm just, oh, I love how cocky he is. I like a cocky bastard. What can I say? So yeah, eventually she also finds out in the diary that she is adopted, essentially. Someone left her in front of her dad's house and he never told her, but he loved her as her own. And it was kind of heartbreaking seeing her doubting that, who even am I? Who are my parents? And Kai was again there for her. He told her it doesn't matter if you're related by blood or not. He was there for you. He was your dad in every sense that matters. So Kai, he's just a blessing. But yeah, eventually there's a lot of sweet moments between them that I was eating up. I'm gonna probably be rereading at least the second half of the book eventually because they were so good. And eventually they come across a field. I forgot, I think it's actually named The Field, if I'm correct. And that's the last stop before she gets proposed to by Kitt. And it's also the moment when they are finally just honest with each other, when he tells her he loves her and that it's not pretend anymore. He confronts her and he says, we kissed. I see her back stiffen beneath the damp shirt sticking to her skin. 3 times now. She turns, looking tired. Why are you telling me this as if I'm not constantly avoiding thinking about it? Because this is already more difficult than it should be. You're not just a mission to me. You're not just another enemy for me to find. You're something even more terrifying. His voice is little more than a whisper. And what is that? A need. Oh my gosh. And then she says, I thought you had found your courage. I smile slightly. Maybe I'm fine with being a fool, so long as it's for you. Guys, I'm dying. And my bad, this isn't on the field. This is still in the cave part of the territory. And I also love those moments when he would call her by her name. He used to do that, but then she kind of forbade him because it's such an intimate thing and he doesn't deserve it. And then eventually he called her by her name again and he said, Pay. My name from his lips is a weakness I shouldn't let him hold over me. I think I would fall on my sword if it meant you mourned me. And it's terrifying to think you hold that much power over me. So just these moments in books when the character, like the main lead character, never calls her by her name. It's always like a nickname or something, or her surname. But then there's that one time when he does, when he says her name. That's better than anything else. Like literally, it's so good. It's such a satisfying moment. And there are plenty of those in here. He kept calling her Gray or darling, stupid shit like that. And then there were moments when he would be like Paedyin or Pay. Just so good. And this was on the field. Flicking my nose, I repeat simply. Something I've always had a thing for, among others, of course. And he's like, go on, darling. That reminds me. Calling me darling, cocky bastards, long dark eyelashes. I could melt from the heat in his gaze. Knowing what I need exactly when I need it, ripping my dresses, dimples that make me, and then she's like cut short because he's like, in a single step, he's closed the distance between us and pulled my mouth to his. Finally, they are finally honest and real, but it's cut short immediately after this. Soon after this, they're discovered by the Imperials and they drag them back to the palace where Kitt confronts them. And it's such an interesting scenario because Kitt doesn't look like himself. He looks like his dad, very stoic, very cold. But then at that last part, when he gives his speech before he proposes to her, I remember Paedyin and I don't know if it was from Paedyn's perspective or Kai's. I think it was from Paedyn's. That's when she feels a glimpse of hope because she sees for a second Kitt again. Like she sees him in his eyes, not his dad. So that's hopeful. What does that mean? Does this mean that this plan of his is actually a positive thing? That it's not something negative? It's not some scheme that he's concocting to torture her and everyone? Because why would in that moment his face change back to himself, right? And Kai notices this too, because I remember from her point of view, she describes it like she looks over to Kai and she says it like he sees it too, right? So that's interesting. I think my theory is that, yeah, Kitt is on the good side of things somehow. I'm not sure how it involves the other guy that's helping him, counseling him, the resistance leader that I again forgot the name of, but we'll see. And yeah, Kai, the sad puppy that he is, he just doesn't feel deserving of her. He never has. And there are a lot of times in this book when he kind of thought to himself that he doesn't understand how someone so pure and amazing can look at him like he's worthy of something. And whenever he said that, I just wanted to scream at him. I wanted to shake him and be like, "Ah, you are worthy of everything and so much more. You are amazing. Stop selling yourself short." Ugh, and this is again relatable because I feel like all of us at some level or at some point felt insecure and we just needed someone to shake us and tell us like you are good enough, just stop it. And that's how I felt when I was reading his point of view, just like give yourself a break, Kai. So this is sad because this is like literally the last three sentences of this book. She was supposed to be my forever. Now I'll watch her become someone else's because the beast doesn't get the beauty. And this is a full circle moment, but not exactly, because he said the same thing in Powerless. Then her eyes drift to Kitt, the connection snaps, and I'm left feeling empty besides the jealousy growing inside of me. Why did I ever think I could have her, ever think she would have me? Because beasts don't get the beauty. And then after that, eventually when they get together, he's like, she doesn't pull away. Perhaps the beast can earn the beauty after all. And now, in Reckless, he's like, the beast doesn't get the beauty after all. So I assume in the third book, there's probably gonna be like a sentence similar to this too. And I'm into that. I love that it's like a common thread that connects all of them. So yeah, watch out for that, right? I wanna end this episode on a positive note with a quote when he says, "You are my proof of a paradise." Beautiful. So beautiful. Can someone say that to me, please? Like, that would be highly appreciated. And yeah, with that, I finished this episode. I wanna keep talking about Kai and Paedyin. There's so much more that I wanna say actually, but I've been talking for an hour and a half already. This is probably gonna be shorter because I have to edit it, but yeah, it's been long. My room is getting dark. Like, it's been dark for a while. Yeah, that's it for today, guys. Tune in for my powerful episode. So, the third book of this book series. It's coming out on April 8th. I'm gonna try to read it as fast as possible and, post an episode as fast as possible. So stay tuned for that. We have so much more to discuss. Currently, I'm reading Sunrise on the Reaping. So far, it's brilliant. This might actually be next week's episode. If I have the time, I'll probably gonna record that one because I'm already so emotional about it, so invested. So I imagine it's gonna be hard for me to not talk about it. And also, I'm reading Credence right now, which is a dark romance by Penelope Douglas. I've already read Devil's Night by Penelope Douglas, and I actually kind of discussed it on this podcast, but it's part of another episode. It's like a brief discussion. So find that, and even if you haven't read the book series, it's like a dark romance, and you're kind of interested, maybe listen to that episode and maybe I convince you to read it. Maybe you'll like it. Who knows? But yeah, Credence so far, ooh, is twisted. So be warned. Okay, and that's it for today. Subscribe to this channel, rate it if possible. It would help and I would appreciate it a lot. Follow me on Instagram, on TikTok. Let's connect. But yeah, see you next week. Bye.